I will record this for you. So we are on Access Project 1, Part 2, easing you into this whole idea of databases. And remember, the reason we have you learn databases is because they are just everywhere on the internet. Every website you go to, inventory, messaging, social media, there's databases full of your messages, all the things that, not only the message you sent, but every place you've clicked. They're tracking everything you do on the page, how long you took before you clicked on the next thing, because they want to know what you're interested in. They sell that information to those people, either showing the ads that show up on the pages or the emails you get. They are tracking everything, and because databases can do it very efficiently, it's good to know how they work, and perhaps you may at some point be needing to use a database more closely than just them tracking you. You may be working with a database person that's selling you things or telling them how expensive this is going to be, and you can say, wait a minute, I know how these tables work. I don't think it's going to cost that much. Or even yourself say, databases or learning Access, I could teach other people how to do that. So let's start up Access, begin or open up our last project, AC1. I kept it in a special place. It remembers where I was, and I open it up, and let's review what I have here. We have the owners table sitting here. Double click on it to see the owners that I've entered into that table. I can always view the design of my table and to see, I've named the columns this, the field links are these, the description of certain fields are entered. I could add extra fields if I thought, there might be some more useful information to keep about owners, but we're not going to do that. But you might keep track of the owner's credit card number. Do you think the veterinarian should keep the credit card number in the owner's database? They might, because they want to charge you. But if ever anybody is keeping a credit card in their database, what happens if their database gets hacked or stolen or copied to some person off in Russia? They might say, you need to report to all your customers that their credit card information has been compromised. So it's very dangerous for any vendor to be storing that information. When I'm thinking of security and designing systems in our more advanced classes, I always think, can I let someone else handle the payment? Like, send them to their PayPal account. Let PayPal handle keeping track of their credit card numbers. As soon as you're keeping track of your credit card numbers, or your company is, if that information gets out, you are liable. And there are laws that if any company has their database compromised, they have to report it to their customers within like 30 days. If they don't, they get big fines. So storing special information like that needs to be encrypted. That means scrambled so no one else can read it except without having the password. Just makes it a little harder for them to get at your data. So that's something, if you're going out on the internet and using your credit cards, keep track of that and have a way of knowing if something gets hacked, how to contact those people. Or even if you lose your wallet and have all your credit cards in it, could you keep track of calling those companies and saying, hey, I need a new card because it's been hacked, or it may have been compromised. So the owner's table has that information. We want to create another table to keep track of our beautiful little patients, our little cats and puppies that we're treating. Yes, sir. That's a good question. How would a company know? Basically, there are services that you can use to say, has my information made it out to the dark web? Is somebody else seeing my information? You can actually do that for your own personal information. You can sign up for a service that checks to see, is your email being used somewhere in data that's being shared among the hackers. But yeah, it's hard to tell unless you actually detect an attack and they say, wait a minute, how did they know to get in here? Our data's been compromised. There was one company that they simply lost one of their backup tapes, and they eventually found it like a month later. It had been dropped behind. We're not sure if that was really where it ended, or maybe somebody just lost track of it. They had to report to other customers because they didn't know where the data had gone. because they lost track of it. It was supposed to go to secure storage. So in that case, it actually hadn't been compromised, but since they didn't know where it had gone, they had to report, and then later find out, oh, we hadn't been hacked, but we suspected it. So yeah, if you lose the track of the data, if especially it's on storage media and that CD that had the information is gone, or if you see it out there being traded, then you know you've been hacked. And then of course, if your customer starts saying, "Hey, I'm getting the spam now," or I'm getting fake charges against my card, you're the only one I use this card for. So multiple ways of finding out if you've been hacked. I do have one alumnus from like 2008 has been calling me. His phone has been hacked. It sounds like his phone actually was hacked so bad that they actually cloned his phone. So when he tries to go log into things that want two-factor authentication, that other phone seems to be getting his information. And as he enters his two-factor authorization number, now they know how to get into his accounts. It's messed him up completely. He's calling me like, "I don't think I can help you here. You better talk to a professional that can immediately lock down your phone." You don't want that to happen to you. So be very careful. Remember, as you're going out there, all the data that you're sharing is being put in somebody's database. And so plan on, changing your card regularly. Don't use the same passwords on multiple sites, because once they find the password on that site, they'll try to use that same user password on all their thousands of sites that they can have automatic programs that go try to break in. Question?
Do you regularly have people just call you up from like years ago with their computer?
Not very often, but yeah, a couple times a year I'll get a phone call. "Yeah, Miss Mary, I'm from 2008. And I was like, "Well, phone hacking, well, I kind of have a clue, but you better talk to a professional." I sent them to Experian, and they have a suspect identity theft. You call us. But I hope you don't have to make calls like that. But if you do, we'll be happy to help you out and send you to the right people, because we'll be working on lots of other stuff. And you need an expert when you get identity theft. You don't want to try it yourself. Thing is, I told him like a week before, "Hey, you need to get a professional." And it's been a week now. It's like, why didn't you call it professional? Maybe he's going to listen to me now. We need to create a new table now, though. We have owners, but now we need the pets that they're going to bring to us. And we're going to create that using the designer. We're going to go to the Create tab, and we're going to create a table now in the Create tab using the Design view. Now, we're not going to go to Datasheet view. We're going to go to Table Design view. And here we're going to list the names of the columns. I like this better because it has a lot more options. It's more clear to you that we're working with the field names, which are going to become the column headings. Our first field is going to be Patient ID. And typically the first field is that very special primary key of the table. And then we have additional fields that we enter into our table.
What do you do if you click on table, it doesn't say field name?
Does it say what?
Mine added table 1, but it doesn't say field name, it says ID again.
Oh, right, because you clicked create table instead of table design. What you can do is you can switch over to table design, or just close that, not save changes, and come back to table design. If you do table, it wants to give you your first field, which I don't want to use. This is how we create our first table. I don't think this is as friendly, where you go to table fields and have all this menu going on and clicking on the column header. To me, that's kind of confusing, and it's like you're wasting your time. Just tell people to go use Designer to create their tables. Yeah.
I think I have it. This is table 1 app, but like it's not over under table. It just says owners.
Don't worry about that for now. All we're going to do is do create table design. If the other owners is showing up, we'll check on that. So to create table design, and now it's going to give the name table 1. And we're going to give it the field name of patient ID. We're going to call it the patients table when we go to save it. Let me just check on something real quick here. All right. So, what do we want to keep track of for our patients? What does it make sense to keep track of for patients? Well, we want to keep track of, first of all, we're going to assign an ID to them. Oh, and before I forget, the patient ID needs to be the key field to everything in my table. So I'm going to click on the little key up here. We want that to be the primary key of my table. Primary keys are important for access to happily find your data very quickly. It's the index or the unique identifier of your data. So I'll put in here main identifier for all the records. And that's true of every primary key. It's our main identifier of the records in this table. And the first field we're going to put in here is our patient name. Now normally I would have, if this were human, it would be first name and last name. But with our patients in our veterinarian, we just have single names. Maybe somewhere along the line, like people tend to do, treat their pets like children, give them first and last names. We're just giving them one name. And we want to know what animal type they are. Animal type. We are giving everything the default type of short text. Later on, as we create more tables, we'll be using different data types. But short text is easiest, and I'm not even worrying about the field size. I'm leaving it at the default 255. So they could have very long names if we wanted to. And very long animal type. And we're going to keep track of the breed. Oh, and for animal type, what we mean here, I'm going to put in the description, canine, feline, etc. Equine, insect, lizard, reptile, breed, and owner ID. Now this is very important. This better be a short text, and you know why it needs to be short text? Because in the owner's table, it is a short text. And this is my connection or link or relationship related field in the owner's table. AKA, also known as a foreign key. A name that the nerdy database people have called references to a relationship or to a key in another table. It's called a foreign key because this is related to the owner information in the owner's table. Instead of putting the name of my owner, their city, state, city address, zip code, phone, email, I only refer to them by their ID in the other table, so I don't have redundant data. I don't want to rename them again. I just want to say, oh, see information about the owner? It's over there in the owner's table. You don't store it with the patient. We relate the tables. So owner ID, short text, because it's short text in the owner's table. And I think that's all the fields that we're putting in our patient ID, in our patient table. Now later we could come back and say, you know, I want a picture of my patient. Or I want the ID tag that's been, the microchip tag. That could be extra fields that we could come back and add later. Right now, we're just doing a basic keeping track of the patients, assigning a key for a reference to their ID. Now I can Control S, save this table, or close it. It will ask me its name when I close it. Saving the changes, yes. And I'm going to call that the patients table. And it appears now in my Access Object Navigator because I have created that table and it's now there. If I ever open it, double click, I see the field names, but there's no data in, there's no records in there yet. I can always go back to Design View, clicking here, and review my design and my comments. So we've designed the table. Now let's go back to datasheet view and let's enter some information about patients. And we have some information about a few patients. I think we only have 3 patients at the start. Here's our 3 patients. Patient, and I want to see the full columns. I'm going to click in the upper left corner and then double click on any border of a column, and it will now nicely auto fit all my titles of my columns, just to make it nicely readable. Yes, sir.
So when I create the table, for some reason the first, like, it created a new first line that is called like a first line was created by itself.
You did the create table instead of create table design. So just if you go to design and just delete that extra field if you have an extra one you don't need. You can always click on any field and delete it, and it'll delete that out of your field names. If it's a primary key, it may warn you, turn off primary key and then delete it, and just click that and it'll turn off the primary key. If you're selected in that field, you can turn it on and off, and then then you can delete it. So I bet you have an ID sitting there, right, with a key on it. So does yours look like this? If I have a row above that, does it have something like this?
Yeah.
And you have it, and it's set to primary key. So just click on it, turn off the primary key, then it'll let you delete it. Yeah. And then patient ID, you can turn that to be the primary key. Then you're good.
So for some reason I don't have the table design.
Click on the home tab. There you go. And now go to design view. And turn off the key. And now delete that row. And now make that primary key by clicking that key in again. There you go. And now you can go to datasheet view. Yeah, saving the table. And now we're ready to enter patients. Yeah, access is not, when you do something wrong, access is not often very helpful of what you did wrong or how to fix it. Okay, so now we want to enter some patients. Go back to datasheet view and enter a patient ID of C-1. You got to be very careful now to enter exactly this, because as we're bringing in data later, they're only referring to a patient with the ID C-1. If you spell it wrong, it's going to complain. Name, pause. It is a feline. The breed is calico. And the owner ID is O-2. And again, here we're going to refer to owners. We better make sure we spell that. That's not a 0, that is letter O, because it better refer to an existing owner or our database has a problem. It's going to explode and your computer will crash. No, the database will just be corrupted. Let's add another patient. Notice as soon as I start typing a new patient ID, that star bops down to the next row saying, okay, here's the new record. If you ever want to do another new one, enter here. The name of this one is Ranger, and tab over Canine, and a breed Labrador, and O-1 is the owner. Now just for fun, now that Labrador exceeds the width of that column, let's see if I auto-fit, see if it will do that for me. Double click. Yeah, it will auto-fit not only the title, but all the data in there as well. So if you get a long name, you can auto-fit to that name. One more patient, F-1. Name of this one, cute little Fluffy. It's a feline of breed Tabby, and the owner is O-1. So owner 1 has 2 patients registered in our veterinary business. Now, thinking about the relationship of this table to our owners table, the very important thing here is if I'm referring to an owner and they don't exist in my owner table, that's going to be a problem. If I double click owners, I see that I only have O-1 and O-2. Right now, it will let me enter O-3 and not complain. That's a problem. I have a corrupt database right now. I'm referring to a non-existent owner, and I have an orphaned little feline right now that's going to be sent to the shelter. So I better make sure that I have an existent owner, or that poor pet's life is in danger. And that's something we're going to do in our database when we get it fully functional. Right now, it's allowing us to enter bad data, but we're going to be very careful about that. We're going to enter O-2, O-1. Right now, it's only something we have to be careful about, but we would like the database to make sure we don't accidentally enter wrong data there. So there I have one table, designed and entered our patient table. So what have we learned? We can design a table, or we can create a table using design view, enter field names, or create a table using table view, and I have to go through the table fields here, and I can choose what data types they are, just like we did that first table. I don't find this as friendly as clicking to add and choosing a text and having to come back and click on it, give it a name and all that. I don't like this way of designing. I actually prefer the design view this way, and I can see what my columns are, etc. And if I'm ever done with the table, or realize I don't care for that table, I can come over here and right click, delete that, because that was just a quick little test. It always warns you if you delete stuff, because it'll say, hey, that action cannot be undone. Sometimes when you're editing data, you can do a Control-Z and it will undo your typing. And notice here, it does not check for spelling unless you ask it to check for spelling. Somewhere there is a spell check. There it is. I can check the spelling, and it says, oh, that might be spelling. So, or I can Control-Z, undo that typo. Somebody sat on the E key, Control-Z, and I can fix that. But the Control-Z only goes back so far. If you close your table, saving changes, you come back to it, Control-Z is no longer available. So while it's open, you may be able to undo some things, but once you close it, there's no undo. Which teaches us, if we're messing with our database, we better be sure to back it up. Now, we want to create some more tables, but we're going to save you some work this time. We're going to let you import data from a database with the tables already there for you. And the way to do that is to go to Schoology and go to this assignment where your beloved instructor has created a file for you, instead of you having to go find it in the zipped folders. Down here underneath assignments in Access Project 1, there is a database here containing extra tables that we want to bring into our database. So let's click on that and download it. I'm going to save it to my Section 2 folder, where I have this database in the same place. You could just as well save it to your downloads folder. That's perfectly fine. Just save it somewhere where you know where it is, because the next thing we're going to do after we save that is we're going to go back to Access, and we're going to get those tables from an external data source. So we've saved the file. Come back to, yes?
Hypothetically, if you were logging in, you got on the fundamentals.
Oh yeah, under assignments, down in the assignments, go to Assignment Access Project 1, and that file right there, just click on that and download it. Sorry, I forgot to. You may have not been logged in, and that sometimes takes a little time. So Access Project 1, there's the file that I've provided for you. And remember, where I got that from was the data files here that had you have to download a whole boatload of files and then unzip them. I'm saving you time from having to unzip all the Access files. If you want to explore all the Access files, you're welcome to download that, unzip it, and then view that, or use it for this assignment. And on Google Drive, you can actually unzip them there using the zip extractor, and then you don't have to download the full zip file. So now back to Access. Now that we've downloaded the file, we're ready now to import the tables that were provided in that download. So I go now to new data source. From, not a file, here's all the possible file formats. It's a database, so I can tell it, oh, it's from an Access database. Look at all the other places I could get data from. Online sources, other strange sources called ODBC. I want to go to get it just from another Access database. So I go from database, Access, and up pops a little dialog saying, what do you want to do? And first of all, where do I get the data from? Well, let's go browse to where I know I saved that file. Yeah.
Is this supposed to be on a blank? Because like you're like it's highlighting patients, but like there's nothing on your screen. Is that what? Like is it supposed to be blank?
What's supposed to be
How do
blank?
you do that?
External data.
How do you close out your table?
Like, are we bringing it to a
Oh, were we
blank
supposed to close out of our table?
It's always good to close tables when you're done with them, but it's not going to matter. We're going to go external data,
Oh.
new data source, database access. And this should come up, and this may be blank for all I know. What we want to do is browse to where we have our files. Doesn't matter what's here right now. We're going to browse to where I know I have saved that file that I downloaded. So I'm going to browse over to there where I keep it in a special place. And there it is. I had downloaded it, I found it, and now I'm going to tell it I want to bring it into my table, not link to it. This is a very powerful capability where I don't have to make a copy of that. But if that file ever disappeared or moved, my database is completely broken. And it's not a whole lot of data, so I'm happy to import it, make a copy of it into my database. So I choose that and click OK. And now it gives me some choices. What from that database do I want to import? It shows me that there's 3 tables there. There are no queries or forms or reports or macros or modules. And I want all of them. So I can just do a select all and say OK or click OK. Select all of those tables, ready to import, ready to click OK. Found them all. And the only thing it asked me, do I want to do this again in the future? No, I don't need to. I don't need to save these steps. So I don't tell it to save import steps. And I click close, and suddenly 3 tables appear in my database now. And let's now go explore the database or the tables that we have imported. Let's take a look at the appointments table. Look at that. I have appointments for my 3 patients, a time and a date and a time, what treatment they're getting. Oh, I bet you that's probably listed in the treatment cost table. The veterinarian that's going to be doing it or responsible for the treatment, and who the owner is. Now this table, see how it's only referring to the treatment number. The rest of the information about treatments is in the treatment table. The veterinarian, I'm only referring to them by their veterinarian, and their information is to that veterinarian's table. So this is showing you the relationships between all my tables is all connected with the appointments table. The appointments table is referring to all the other tables just by the primary key in those other tables. And if I want to look at the design view of this table, I can go to the Home tab, and let's just for fun look at the design view of this table. Made for me already, and notice they're not using short text everywhere. It does show that this is referring, it has some mostly useless description, but this is a reference to my veterinarian in the veterinarian's table, the patient in the patient's table, the owner in the owner's table. Let's take a look at what's in the treatment cost table. Oh, all the treatments, what it is, the type of animal that's supposed to be for, and the cost. And if I look at design view, I see that the cost is saved as a currency data type. And look at the veterinarian's table. We have 2 veterinarians. There's their IDs, and there's all their information about how to contact them. I don't have to do anything to the design of those. I just know that that data is now ready for me to use as I start getting information, putting it together, like who has an appointment tomorrow. That's going to be an important thing, and I want to know more than their name. I'm going to need to know, well, what is the phone number or what's the actual name of the patient, so when they come I can say, hello, whatever Jaws or Ranger is, or Paws or Fluffy. I'll know what to call them instead of, hey, oh, you're patient F1, welcome. That's not quite as personal. So now we have the tables. We'll be working with those in the future projects. Let's now look at how to create additional types of objects. Before we get into the next chapter, will be all about queries. But we're going to create a query just to see how they work. We have the information so far. Let's go to the Create tab. And we're going to start with the easy way, the Query Wizard. We're going to start with the Query Wizard, and let's see what happens here. In the Query Wizard, I click Create, Query Wizard. And the first thing the Query Wizard wants to know is, what kind of a query do you want to create? We only worry about simple queries right now, so I click OK. And now it gives me a choice. So what table do I want to show or select from to view? Well, I care about information about the owners. So let's choose here in the pull down, let's choose, I want to view information or query the information from my owners table. What information do I want to see about my owners? That's what we call available fields. Selected fields are what's going to show up when I execute my query or run and gather the information. The information I want to select is the first name. Select that and click the arrow over. Last name, I could select and arrow over or double click owner last name. Oh, I accidentally clicked owner ID. Let me send that back to the available. Owner last name, send it over, double click. Owner street and owner city and owner state. Just double click. If I ever have the wrong ones here, I can send them back and then send them back over. It puts them in this order, the selected fields, that now will be listed or selected from all the information in my owners table. So a query allows me to extract or inquire about specific information from my table. I don't need to worry about their postal code right now. Now I click next, and I can decide how to what to do with my query. Oh, did I click finish instead of next? Table owners, next. Yeah. And I click finish. And what do I get? I get a listing of the owners' first and last names. Let me click here and double click on a border just so I see everything nicely fitted. I can adjust my width of my rows if I like to see any wrapping. And this is what a query gives me. It gives me the specific information I asked about from that specific table. And we're going to be doing much more with queries the next chapter. I can close this, and yes, I want to save the changes. And it shows up in my queries here. Now, just for fun and for information in this project, let's rename this. I can right-click rename on it. As long as it's closed, it will allow me to rename it. If it's not closed, it won't let me rename it. I want to put AC1 at the beginning, AC1-31, because that's the page it is in the book. AC1-31. I will right-click rename and put left arrow AC1-31. 31. Yes, question.
What would I have done wrong if I clicked OK and then it didn't give me a query separate from the tables?
It doesn't show up under here?
Well, I thought I got all the steps, but I think I missed.
Let's see here. Well, you can always start over. Or make sure up here that under here you're showing all access objects. Under the little arrow here, it should be showing all objects.
Oh, no, it's there.
So that was a query. And to use them, I can just double click and I can always view the information that query pulls out of my table. Think of a query as it's pulling data out of my table. Another term for that is it's selecting data out of the owners table, only of the fields that I asked for. Now we're going to create another object in our database called a form. And the form, we're going to use a simpler way to create a form. We're not going to use a form wizard. We're just going to go what I call the 3-click method to get a form. I'm in the Create tab. I select the owner's table, and then I click on Give me a form. Now let's see what we get when we click Form. I'm not going to go Form Design or Form Wizard, just give me a form. It automatically gives me all the fields from the owner's table and creates a little entry for each one vertically. I want to switch over to Form View. Yep.
I clicked on form after selecting owners, and it says you don't have exclusive access to the database at this time.
Did you not close the owner's table?
It's not open, it's just selected by yours.
Let me take a look here. Why would that be? Go ahead and click OK.
Oh, it popped up after I said okay.
I'm not sure why it said that to you.
Me neither. Very misleading.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes it gives up mysterious messages, and it's like, wait a minute. And sometimes you can ignore them. So remember how I created that query, or created the form? I click the owners, and click Create and Form, and I have a form. I'm going to go to Form View, only because this is what they would see if I have someone doing data entry. They would view a form, and I can navigate my form using the tiny little navigation buttons down at the bottom, forward and backward, and I can even go to the end and enter new data into my table. If you ever have a data entry job, this is the kind of things that you would allow those employees to see. They can easily navigate one record at a time. Nice thing about a form is I could even be displaying the picture of my patient. Forms allow you to do that, where in data sheet view of the owner's table, I can only see it like an Excel spreadsheet. So the form view, I consider a little more user-friendly view of the data, one record at a time. If I want to see it all together, I could always edit the data as a table, in data sheet view. So this is, I call a user-friendly way of navigating my data. And I can close this or save it. And the name I'm going to give that is, let's see, the name in the table, name in the textbook, is going to be AC1-33. AC1-33. Go ahead, close your database, and then reopen it. I think you forgot to click the enable button when you opened it, or you looks like you opened it twice. That's what's going on. You have it open twice. Close both of them. Go ahead and click OK there, and I'll close the database. Go ahead, see if it'll let you save changes. Yeah, go ahead and click cancel and just close it without saving changes. Click no. And now close the database. You could do file close or click the upper right X on access. Upper right X or file close.
If she's already
And click on the little access thing at the bottom. You had your table, you had your access data, you had your database open twice, and access kind of messes up when you do that. Close this one now. File close, and now let's see, make sure it's Let's make sure. Okay, now open it. Go to your file browser or start up Access. Yep. And
You mean open the thing I just closed?
yep. It doesn't show recent, huh? Does it not show you recents when you start Access?
No.
They messed up their computers. They should allow showing recent. There you go. You have two of them there. We're looking for AC1. Looks like you called it database 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
I made those files and
All right. So now click on Create Form and see if it'll let you save this now. Yep. AC1-31.
31.
Yep. Owners. And click OK. There you go. Yeah, it shouldn't have let you open it twice. It should say, oh, you already have this opened, but I'll blame Access for messing you up. Okay, now we've created a form. Now let's create a report about our owners. Here's how easily we can create a report. Let's go ahead and close our form. Now let's create a report about our owners. The 3-click method. I'm on the Create tab. The Owners table is selected. I come over here and just click Report. And look at that, it generates a report for me. And it's so easy that why should I even have to save it? But let's save it just to make sure we know how it's done and I can know you did it. Create, Owners, Report. And I can view the report in Report View or Design View or Layout View. You don't have to worry about Design View, that's way too messy. You don't have to worry about Layout View, although it puts you in Layout View for some annoying reason. Let's just go ahead and save it, or when I close it, it'll ask me, do I want to save it? Yes, I want to save changes to that report. I click OK, and let's call that, let's see, what page do they have us do that? That's, I think, AC134. Let's see. It's on page AC136. So we use the 3-click method to create a report of our owners. When I click OK, it shows up in the reports section down there. Now, just for fun, let's see the slightly more intelligent way or more flexible way to create a report. I can go to the report wizard this time. Just like the query wizard, I get the chance to choose what fields I want in my report. Rather than give me everything, I could say I only want their first name, last name, street, city, and state. I'm using the wizard this time, the report wizard, only selecting particular fields from the owners table. And I can say, well, I want it grouped by state. And then not sorted by anything particular. The default stepped format, portrait mode. And once I click finish, it's going to generate a report of that form for me. I can always go back and adjust my settings. Once I click finish, here I get a little fancier looking report grouped by state. Let me do that again. I choose the owners table, create, report wizard, choose the first name, last name, street, city, state. Next, group by state. So now every state will have its list of owners. Next, no worry about sorting. The default stepped and portrait. The names, I'll call it owners 1 since it already has an owners, and I click finish. And I have the report wizard helped me through a little fancier report rather than just the 3-click method. The report wizard sometimes helps me get a better report going. And if I close that, I now have 2 reports. It doesn't matter if you have multiple reports. I'm going to put AC1-37 on here by right-click renaming that first one. I'll put AC1.37 in front of it. Now we're going to review more of this on Friday, so don't worry about uploading it yet. We'll review it on Friday, verify. We have to do a few more things to make sure the database knows about those relationships between our tables. We'll do that on Friday, and we'll review the creating of reports and just see this is the basics of the pieces of a database. The data in tables, queries to pull specific information out, forms to view and edit the data in a friendly way, and reports to print out handy information about things, the information we have stored in our tables. So save that. If you want to store a backup somewhere, you can even submit it as a temporary submission. Yes?
I don't think after doing the create after doing the wizard report thing, I don't think it saves.
It didn't do it for mine either. It doesn't have like a third one under reports.
Did you go all the way to if you went all the way to finish, it should have created one for you.
I hit finish and it created it, and then when I hit X, it didn't save it.
Yeah.
Really? Well, then it should be there. Maybe refresh. It should show up there in your list. I see you have 2 of them there. You have AC38 and owners 1. Yes.
How did you get the AC37?
Oh, I just right clicked and did a rename and threw that in front of it.
But if we only have 2.
You should only have 2. I just did another one just for extra.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't need to have 3 of them.
Wait, so should ours say 36 or 37? Or are we renaming it?
Yeah, just rename the plain one to AC1-37. We did one using the wizard. We did one just using the 3-click.
Okay, so the one that says owners 1 should be 1.
Yeah. Here's the 3-click, gives me everything. With using the wizard, I only got specific fields and it's nicely grouped. So the wizard gives me a better looking report. So if I want help making my report, rather than just the 3-click method, the wizard gives a little better option to make it a nicely grouped by state. So the wizard, the 3-click gives you just everything, including their ID, which I don't care about what their ID is. That's kind of an internal number. So save that. We'll continue and we'll finish it off completely. We'll polish it up and also get into Access Project 2 on Friday. Yeah, you only need 2 reports. I did an extra one just for a demo.
Should I just rename this?
Yeah, just rename that one. Just call it. That's the one that you did the wizard for. The names aren't as great as you just don't create tables and reports. You betcha.
She's contributor and former Obama State Department spokesperson, and for the first time, Batya Ungar-Sargon. She is an author and journalist who identifies as a left-wing populist despite having conservative views. She says this is because of her focus on social class, which she feels has been abandoned by the left and embraced by the right. Ladies, welcome to you. Good to have you with us this afternoon. Marie, good to see you.
Thanks, John.
Good to see you, Marie, for the first time since election night.
Exactly.
So Democrats are still trying to analyze what went wrong. This is what Ro Khanna said. Listen here.
The reason we didn't win ultimately is we didn't listen enough to people on the ground, people like Chris Deluzio, Pat Ryan, who were saying, talk about the economy, talk about people's economic struggles, convince people you have the better policies and better vision.
So, Marie, why didn't they do that? Why was it all about vibe?
Well, I think they tried